Okay, so I'm going to run through cloud computing today, why you should learn it, and kind of how to get started for you. So I hope you find it interesting and kind of enjoyable, and let me know if you have any questions. So I think you guys have done an introduction already, so I'm just going to really quickly run through kind of my background and stuff, what I do currently. Essentially, I am in cloud computing. So as we said earlier, my name is Hosanna. I'm an Azure specialist at Microsoft currently, and I've been working in tech for about 3 years now, or in cloud. I have a background in kind of business management and computing for my MSc, and I'm also the founder of a platform called the Tech Corner. So that's just me. If you've got any questions kind of about my background and how I got here and stuff, feel free to kind of drop me a note, and I'm happy to go through that as well. But just to kick things off, I thought it'd be great to kind of just talk about what cloud computing is from a starting perspective, because I find that a lot of people actually don't know what it is. It is quite confusing if you kind of never worked with it before, but I'll try and break it down as simply as possible for you guys. And again, let me know if you have any questions at all. So essentially, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services. So stuff like storage, databases, networking, software, applications, analytics, pretty much everything that's IT related, but over the internet. And what we refer to it as the cloud. And I'm not sure why we refer to it as the cloud. I probably should have looked that up, but that is what it's called. And that's kind of the computing arm of it. It's essentially companies renting out services over the internet, rather than having it kind of on premises and owning their own data center. So when I say cloud computing, a lot of people kind of don't know what it is. They kind of question whether or not it's a thing, if they know it, if they've used it. But you actually find that most people use cloud computing absolutely every day with everything that they do. So these are examples of kind of consumer cloud computing products that I'm sure you've all used. From iCloud, if you've got an iPhone. So if you've got an iPhone, more than likely, none of your pictures, videos, applications and stuff sit actually on the phone, because you'll find that the phone doesn't actually have that much storage. So if you guys remember back in the day, if you are my age, back in the day where there wasn't cloud computing and your phone would kind of run out of storage and you'd have to keep changing the memory card and things like that, and it was just a whole load of drama. You obviously don't have to do that anymore, because what happens is that you pay Apple a very small fee for them to kind of base it on the cloud instead. So that's kind of cloud computing and kind of the products that are associated with it on normal applications that you might use. So iCloud, as I mentioned, Dropbox, Office 365, Google Drive, OneDrive. I'm sure all of you guys have basically used them before and know exactly what they are. And they're all based on cloud computing. What you actually really only need to know to get started with cloud computing is the basics are kind of the cloud models. So these are them. And if you want to work in cloud computing, you have to know them, because they basically shape the entire technology. And essentially what the cloud models talk about is the shared responsibility model between the customer and cloud providers like Microsoft. So the biggest cloud providers out there are Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, which is really interesting when you think about how the company started. The fact that Google is now a cloud provider and Amazon, which is obviously like a retailer, is now a cloud provider, shows you already the importance of cloud computing in technology in general, that basically the biggest, most relevant companies in the world have made it their most important strategic vision, and essentially what they want their companies to be known for. So it starts off from kind of on-premises, I said. So if you look from my left to the right, it's basically showing the journey that people go on for cloud computing. If you're on premises, you essentially do no cloud computing at all, and you manage absolutely all the technology yourself in what we call a data center. You have your own data center and you manage everything by yourself. So the applications, the data, the cooling, the actual physical equipment and stuff as well. But when you start your cloud computing journey, most people start with what we call IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. They essentially get rid of the data center and start running some infrastructure in the cloud. And most of it is kind of virtualizing laptops and stuff like that. So virtualizing machines, they're called virtual machines. So if you think of the laptop that you're probably watching this from, not everyone has a physical laptop. A lot of people have virtual machines and they use it. It's essentially allowing you to have access to your work anywhere you go. So you don't have to have a work laptop. You can have a personal laptop or an iPad and things like that and work on that, you still have access to all your work, but on a virtual laptop. So that makes sense. That tends to be the first step that people take. That's the IaaS. So they manage kind of the application on the virtual laptop, the runtime and stuff like that, but they don't manage the virtualization, the storage, the data center, the networking, because Microsoft or Google or Amazon will do that. Then we have platform as a service. Once you've kind of decided you kind of want to do more, well, you want the cloud provider to do more, you want to do less. Essentially, you go on to then start only managing the applications, and that's platform as a service. You manage the application, the data, but the company, Microsoft and Google and stuff like that, will manage kind of more things. They'll manage the runtime, the middleware, and things like that for you as well. So a lot of people do platform as a service, especially if you're developers. A lot of developers are obviously moving to cloud services rather than kind of traditional developer tools. And then finally, we have software as a service, which is essentially the company, the cloud provider does everything, and you literally just use the application. You don't touch the application, you don't change it, you don't touch the data. So if you think of things like Office 365, Teams, Skype, as a company, your company, wherever you work, won't obviously touch that. Microsoft will do everything. And that's essentially what software as a service is. If you're going to learn anything about cloud computing, this is what you definitely need to know as a starting point. So I've just put this out quickly because it is difficult to get your head around, but we get it taught as like pizza as a service. So if you think like, if you want to eat a pizza, if you're traditional on premises, you make everything at home. So you have your house, you have the equipment, you have the oven, you have the ingredients, you have absolutely everything. And then if you go infrastructure as a service, you go pick up the pizza at Tesco. So you're not making it, Tesco's making it. Then platform as a service, even more than that, you get it delivered. So to your house, you'll still kind of have the house, but you're only doing the dining table, the drinks. You're not touching the pizza at all. Someone else is kind of making it. And then finally, if you don't want to do any of that, is you literally going out and not having to even have like a table or drinks or anything like that. The company does everything for you. So it's kind of a good way of thinking about it. It's really helped me when it comes to learning kind of IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So for anyone who's never seen a data center before, this is essentially what it looks like. It's not that interesting, but this is Microsoft's data center. I think in Dublin, I believe in Dublin, we have loads of them across all over the world, but we have to have massive data centers because if you think all other companies are closing their data centers down because they want to have our services over the internet, we then obviously have to have big ones to be able to store everything, to be able to store the servers, do the networking, and traditionally, and still to this day, really, data centers are very secure buildings. Not very many people get to go to them, obviously, because they hold essentially the economy in their hands. If someone was to be able to get in and kind of ruin things, it would be a very big problem for all the cloud providers, all the companies that have their data on the cloud. So you can imagine not very many of us get to go. You can if you work at a cloud provider. I know some people have gone to kind of Amsterdam and Dublin and stuff to see them, but you're only allowed in it for a certain period of time. You have to do kind of a lot of passes to get in, and only one person is allowed in a room for like 12 minutes and stuff like that. So it's a whole load of protection, but I hear it's pretty cool. I'm hoping to go next year because of kind of the scale and how big it is. So a really good thing to be able to see if you get to see it one day. But this is essentially what a data center is. And obviously, if you are a company who has one, yours will not be at this scale. Yours might be literally one little box there. So yeah, these are the ones we've kind of built over the last few years. We started off with only a few and we've built them. And then I think the one at the back is where it's coming next year. We're just expanding. But why you should learn cloud computing. So obviously I've just talked about why, what it is, and I hope you guys have had kind of a good understanding. I hope I'm not going too fast, but I know I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm hoping to kind of get as much in as possible to provide you guys with, something that's as valuable as possible. Okay, so why you should learn cloud computing. So I've wanted to share with you guys some cloud computing trends to kind of give you an idea of what exactly the scale is for it, why it's so important, and why you should be looking for it as a skill if you want to go into tech. There's so many areas of tech and people are always wondering, where should I go? Personally, for me, I think if you're going to kind of come in, you should definitely be looking at things that are high in demand, which have kind of huge earning potential and which are not going anywhere. And cloud computing is a great one because absolutely everything will sit on it. So even if you have kind of, let's say you're a developer and you have software engineering skills, programming skills, you will need to learn cloud, whatever area. If you're a data scientist, you will eventually need to learn cloud. So everyone will need to learn it anyway. So it's a great way to get started. But so these are some facts. By 2025, 80% of enterprises will migrate entirely away from on-premises to data centers to the cloud. So we're in 2021, so that's 4 years away. 80% of enterprises. So enterprises tend to be kind of bigger organizations, so not startups and stuff. So mainly all of them will go to cloud. So that's absolutely incredible to think of. And now you'll find that some companies are not on premises at all. They're cloud native completely. So if you think of organizations like Monzo and stuff that don't have kind of traditional brick and mortar stores, they're literally just online. Some organizations are completely cloud native. So the global cloud market is expected to reach, obviously, over 600 billion by 2023, which is just absolutely crazy. Again, we're just in 2021. Think about how much money that is, how much money these companies are making from it as well. According to dice.com, more than 3,800 cloud-related roles are listed daily. So over 3,000 jobs a day. That shows you kind of there's just a massive gap in the market. Companies are desperate for people with cloud skills, and they just don't. We just don't have them. There's like a massive missing gap, and this is only going to increase, right? If 80% of enterprises migrate, we're going to need pretty much everyone to have cloud skills in order for our organization to survive. We're going to need people to be able to understand it from a product perspective, from a networking, from a security perspective, from basically every element. So really important to be thinking about kind of skills for the future. Cloud is definitely one of them. So the average salary for a cloud job this is in the UK is about 57,000. But if you, the reason why I say kind of in the UK specifically, because the difference between this and America, in America it's about 150,000. So that's like the average salary for a cloud role. And 2 years ago it was like 120,000. So in 2 years it's bumped by 20,000 already, which is huge. And to be honest, 57,000 in the UK is pretty good. If you think about the average salary in the UK being 30,000, people who are in cloud roles essentially will make a lot more. Even just like graduate jobs, they're starting off way above 35,000 for some of these big companies as well. So really good opportunity to make a really good salary. And I'm sure this will grow as the market and the demand in the UK grows as well. But then obviously if you wanted to work in the US, then you're going to make a killing. So really, really good skills to think about having. So I just wanted you guys to show you that obviously 90% of Fortune 500 companies use Microsoft Azure. So again, the companies that you all know as well are using Azure. And then Azure is the second biggest cloud provider in the world. AWS is the first, so you have to think Amazon, there'll be even more. And then a lot of companies go hybrid. So they'll have a bit of Azure, they'll have a bit of Google, they'll have a bit of Microsoft, but just to show that already the largest companies in the world are already using cloud and they're moving in that direction, but still a long way to go, definitely. So I thought I'd show you guys just some case studies quickly. Because a lot of people think kind of tech and they think cloud and they're like, I don't really know how that's relatable. I don't really know what that means to me. But again, the companies that you're already using, so ASOS is one of our largest cloud customers in the UK. We do a lot of cloud stuff with them. So if you think about the solutions that they use, I actually know the account exec on ASOS. They're doing some amazing stuff and their cloud spend is crazy and they're just super cool. So anything that you see on ASOS, stuff like the fitness assistant, that's all cloud, right? It's just to show that cloud kind of fits in lots of industries. And then Carlsberg as well. I'm sure you guys know who Carlsberg are. So again, if you're interested in cloud, but you're not sure kind of what to do, which industry, there's always an industry which aligns to you. If you're like, I'm really interested in football, cloud computing helps there as well. I'm interested in fashion, drinks, loads of different areas. Cloud computing fits in there as well. So getting started. So essentially getting started with cloud computing is based on certifications. That's how we measure our knowledge of cloud computing in this space. So it's like fundamental certifications, which would be your basic cloud 900, like this is what cloud computing is. And then you kind of go up to administrator, then you go up to architect, then you go up to expert, and you can take different routes based on which area of cloud you'd want to go to. So if you want to stick with infrastructure, which is what I do, you can stick with it. Or if you want to go into data, other people do that. If you want to go into DevOps, if you want to go into security, like there's so many routes, but you have to do your certifications in order for you to kind of be in the market. Just something that I just saw recently, which I found quite interesting, is that now Microsoft had just opened up their graduate scheme. They're now kind of preferring people to have a certification, and it's listed in kind of the preferred qualification, which they never had before. They didn't have it when I applied. So that just shows you the change is coming, and you should definitely be looking at certs. And the best website to get started with that is Microsoft Learn. Such a great platform. It basically gives you all of the Microsoft Cloud learning. You can learn for absolutely free. It's step by step. It's pathed for you. So if you do one, then it suggests another, then it suggests another. It's kind of interactive. You do also do some labs. So it's really, really good for beginners all the way to advanced. If you're beginning, it'll probably just be kind of videos and words. But if you're going to be an administrator, I had to do quite a lot of labs in mine, some scripting and things like that. So it's definitely a perfect platform to get started. But there's also YouTube, there's Pluralsight, there's so many great platforms to learn cloud. So yeah, if you're looking to get started, then definitely check out these areas. And I think I'm pretty much on time. I really wanted to get through everything as quick as possible. I'm going to stop sharing for now and kind of come back to the platform. Yeah, okay. So you have some questions already in the audience. Fantastic. Yeah, if you share them, that'd be great. Thank you. So do you have any recommendations of resources to learn? Yeah, so yeah, definitely Microsoft Learn, Pluralsight. Cloud Guru is meant to be good as well, but I think that's definitely for more advanced people. Start with like YouTube, Microsoft Learn, free. Start doing free stuff first. Pluralsight will have some free videos as well. I don't have a tech degree or qualification. Can I still get a job in cloud computing? You can definitely get a job in cloud computing if you don't have a tech degree or tech qualification, but you just need to bump that up with kind of certifications and stuff like that, and really show that you have an interest and competence in cloud. So certifications are big. They're not a replacement for kind of experience, but they do help you to kind of get started on your journey. I would say if you get a certification, then try and get some internships and stuff like that, and then kind of work your way up like that. How did I get in? I got in through the graduate program. So I started my career at Microsoft, and yeah, I applied for the graduate program, and it was straight in cloud, basically. Does cloud computing involve a lot of maths? No, it doesn't really. And really depends on what area of cloud that you want to go into. So you can go into kind of like the product knowledge bit and working kind of more product specialism, which is what I do in tech sales. Or if you actually want to be an administrator for a company, which involves you having kind of access and looking after the cloud environment, that's going to require for you to have different skills, but not really maths. A little bit of scripting, but not maths. No. And then what challenges do most companies face migrating from on-prem? Oh God, so many challenges. But I think the biggest challenge is just like learning. They just don't know the platform, and it's really hard. The skills inside the organization, and that's why we need more people in cloud, is really tough. So because they don't have it, so then it's really hard for them to think, God, I'm gonna have to spend money and time training up my team and things like that. And then there's culture change, because obviously if you've been working on premise for 20 years and now someone is coming in and telling you, yeah, you need to move, it kind of makes it really hard. Then there's budget. Obviously migrating over is going to cost, because you need to have someone do the deployment for you. You basically need help internally for it to be, you probably need to hire someone else as well and things like that. So yeah, cost and skills are probably the biggest ones that I see for sure. What is your day-to-day? So my day-to-day is essentially working with companies around kind of cloud computing and how they can migrate over to the cloud. So I'm considered like a product lead, product specialist, and my job is to talk about Azure, evangelize Azure. I always struggle with that word. Evangelize Azure, and speak to companies of why they should migrate over, what resources, how we can help, what strategy they want to take with cloud. So if an organization says to me, "Oh, Hosanna, in a year's time we want to migrate completely off on-premise," it's my job to ensure that they get there, basically. What strategy should we use? What resources? What funding do we have? What support can we give them? And get them across the journey. So lots of customer meetings, essentially. I used to get to travel a lot across the UK before, which was great, but obviously with the pandemic, we can't do that. What was your journey into tech? So yeah, it was just through, I did my undergrad in business, then my postgrad in computing, and then I applied for the graduate program at Microsoft. And then, yeah, that was kind of my journey. What kind of day-to-day activities does someone working in cloud computing do? So many different things. It really depends on your role. But if you're kind of an administrator, you look after the environment. So that might be like spinning up resources, doing the networking, the security, access management, basically looking after the entire environment for the organization. What do you find exciting about cloud computing? What do you see as the future of the industry? What I find exciting is the artificial intelligence side of cloud computing. Like, we're doing some really exciting projects with, how you can use data and cloud computing in order for you to predict trends that's coming in the future. So that can be in healthcare, so predicting someone is going to be sick before they've even gotten, sick, based on kind of the data and some symptoms they've had in the past or their age and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I think data and AI is going to be really interesting. So being able to predict stuff before they've happened within cloud, super cool. And then there's something called high performance computing, which is essentially using cloud to make calculations. So thousands of calculations not even thousands, millions of calculations in like a second, in order for you to get data and results back quicker. So that's going to help with things like, finding the cure for cancer, predicted climate change, so many amazing stuff. Like, financial banks use it in regards to like, are we going to go into another, what is it called, economic breakdown? So lots of really cool stuff. But I think data and AI is the future and where we see it. Okay, what is your day-to-day? So sorry, I thought I kind of gone through that, but it's kind of a lot of meetings. That is kind of my day-to-day, speaking to customers about Azure, evangelizing it. Sometimes I do kind of go-to-market stuff about Azure, go-to-market strategy, building it. How do we speak to customers about Azure? How do we position it? How do we help them? How do we educate them? Sometimes I speak at conferences and get invited to kind of like webinars, industry stuff. So that's kind of my day-to-day. My whole job is making sure people know what Azure is, essentially. What are the non-technical roles in cloud computing? The non-technical roles in cloud, I guess it depends how technical you kind of want to go. So if you want to work in kind of my role and you're kind of working in product rather than kind of being an administrator or something like that, that I guess would probably be unless you're like an account executive, you're working in cloud with customers, but you're not doing any of the tech stuff. So that's probably the least technical. My role still, you need to have level 900 certification. So it is relatively quite technical and you're expected to be quite technical, but it's not like you have to develop the product or anything. You just have to know it really well. So I think it just really depends by what you mean by super kind of technical. I think anyone can do my job. If you're passionate about cloud computing and you're happy to learn it, you'll be fine. What's next for cloud computing? I guess is that kind of data and AI piece that I mentioned is definitely the future. And then obviously the supercomputer. So we're moving from cloud computing to like quantum computing, which obviously cloud computing has led to that. So quantum computing is basically using the idea of kind of physics to make predictions, essentially. So we've just built a supercomputer, and I think AWS are also building it and Google are also building it. But it's basically going to allow us to, I'm just trying to go back to GCSE physics, allow us to make predictions of two things at the same time, if that makes sense. But don't take what I've said to 100%. Definitely Google it. But quantum computing is the future. But I hope you guys found it interesting, useful. Feel free to reach out to me on any of my platforms and say hello if you have any questions. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Bye.